Good evening, folks. Welcome to It Only Takes 50 Years, a lecture by Martha Wilson, sponsored by the photography department. Martha Wilson will survey her work from 1971 to 2021, starting with text-based work created while she was getting an MA in English at Dalhousie University in Halifax, Nova Scotia, to image, text, and performance artwork she created this year. This survey will be followed by a brief question and answer session. Martha Wilson is a pioneering feminist artist and gallery director who over the past 4 decades has created innovative photographic and video works that explore her female subjectivity through role-playing, costume transformations, and invasions of other people's persona. She began making these videos and photo text works in the early 1970s while in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and further developed her performative and video-based practice after moving in 1974 to New York City. In 1976, she founded and continues to direct Franklin Furnace Archive, an artist-run space that champions the exploration, promotion, and preservation of artist books, installation art, video, online and performance art, further challenging institutional norms, the roles artists play within society, and expectations about what constitutes acceptable art mediums. Without further ado, here is Martha.
This is the first work of visual art I ever made. You can see perfectly well that it's all text. So I thought I would explain what I was doing here. My mother was a Quaker. Her family was Quaker for hundreds of years. And so I went to Quaker elementary, Quaker high school, Quaker college, graduating in 1969. You were not alive yet, but we were fighting the Vietnam War. It was the height of the Vietnam War, and my boyfriend at college didn't want to be drafted into the United States Army, so we made the decision to move to Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Why Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada? The Nova Scotia College of Art and Design was located there. The new president hired our painting teacher from Wilmington College, among other people, to come to Canada, and turned 2 faculty salary lines over to the visiting artist program. So the conceptual artists of the day, from Vito Acconci to Lawrence Weiner, were coming through the school. And Vito, for example, was in the school for a month and hung out and really talked to the students. I was not a student at the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design, but the kids were way cooler across the street. So I was hanging out at the college. I was a student in the English literature program. But look, visual art is being made out of language. Wahoo! So these are my chauvinist pieces. One of them is an astrological piece. You have a baby, but the baby is born in the wrong astrological sign, incompatible with your own, so you get to select another baby who is born in a more sympathetic sign. At the end is the chauvinist piece, whereby a man is injected with the hormones that create the symptoms of motherhood. This is a spoof of the work of Sol LeWitt. The conceptual artists of the 70s were permutating everything, so I selected a form that is limitless as a spoof on the work of Sol LeWitt. Breast Forms Permutated is the title of this. This is my beautiful artist boyfriend with whom I moved to Canada. He looked like Marcel Duchamp, so I dressed him up as Rose C'est La Vie, Duchamp's female persona, but I didn't know what to do with his man hands. He had these big, he's a printmaking fellow. So I stuck his hand under the collar of the coat. Then years later, I moved to New York. I go to a show at the Museum of Modern Art that showed the original Man Ray photograph of Marcel Duchamp and read in the caption, he had a woman standing behind him, inserting her hands into the frame. That's why it's such a convincing image. So I was doing experiments. This one is called composure. The experiment is, are we able to compose our features into the mirror more accurately, or are the kinesthetic mirrors that we hold inside our bodies more accurate? And I would venture to say that the image on the right is more miserable than the image on the left. I mean, you can decide what you think. All of these works were experiments. This is posturing drag, where I'm a woman dressing as a man trying to look like a woman. So I have fake hair, fake eyelashes, fake fingernails. Only the boobs are not fake. This is me as a 25-year-old artist trying to look like a 50-year-old woman who's trying to look like she is 25. This is me trying to get into men's rooms. It didn't work at all. They took one look at me and said, "Get out." It was a time when I was not sure who I was, and so I was being a performance artist, although I didn't have the term yet. I didn't know what that was. I didn't understand where I was going. Also, my boyfriend and I were busy breaking up. This is now 1974. So I hired a friend in Halifax to take these pictures. These are the roles held out to women. These are the roles that we are allowed to occupy. We can be a goddess, look good and smell good all the time. We can be a housewife, feed the kids. We can be a working girl, a secretary, work in an office. We can be a professional and run that office. We can be an earth mother and reject the capitalist system. Or we can be a lesbian. And the covering text for this, these are all photo text works. I'm trying to explain what I'm doing in the image. And the text for this says, "I have tried on all these roles for size, none has fit, and the only role left is to be an artist and point at the problem." This piece is called "I Make Up the Image of My Perfection." This is me using makeup to look as good as I can look in 1974. This is "I Make Up the Image of My Deformity," using makeup to look as bad as I can possibly look in 1974. We didn't have Photoshop. It was 1974. I'm standing in front of Alan Comfort's refrigerator because it was the only white wall in the whole apartment. And we used light and camera angle to make these images beautiful and ugly. This is my Demoiselle d'Avignon piece where, again, we didn't have Photoshop, so I took pictures of other women's features that I liked better than my own and pasted them over my face. Decorative arts reversed. There are two images, one of me with zero makeup, that's on the left with the gaudy frame, and one of me with everything on, a wig and false eyelashes and rouge and lipstick and in the minimalist frame. And these are basically, this is conceptually the same piece. It's called Painted Lady, where I'm looking, I have a picture of me with no makeup and a picture of me with a wig and full makeup. And the question is makeup a mask that inhibits expression, or is makeup a means that facilitates expression? And this experiment led me to conclude that makeup is actually not a mask that prevents expression, but a means that enables expression to take place. So my boyfriend dumped my ass and I moved to New York. The Whitney program was interested in performance art, and I was an English lit major, so I was doing pieces related to Alice in Wonderland, except of course I was writing the text myself. And for this one, I'm using the video monitor as a mirror, and I'm turning myself into the caterpillar using black and white grease pencil. In this one, Rose, it has a text also, and I'm playing with the original Alice in Wonderland text, except again I have rewritten it. And this one is an Alice in Wonderland text that I wrote called Mud Pie. It's not mud, it's flour all over the floor, and an artist friend of mine is turning it into a mud pie. But I got kind of sick of, I'm in New York now, so I got kind of sick of the solipsistic view that we have of artists as artists, where we're in our own heads and we can't, get out of our own heads. I had founded Franklin Furnace in 1976, and then by 1978, I had met all these other crazy women in New York, and the no-wave music scene was in progress, whereby Robert Longo, who's well known as a painter and graphic artist, was in a band. Barbara S., well known as a photographer, was in a band. Everybody was in 3 bands, but they all knew how to play instruments. And I didn't know how to play an instrument, so I called all my friends who didn't know how to play instruments, and we founded Disband, the all-girl punk band of women artists who couldn't play any instruments. Well, you can see we have some instruments. This is the New York Post for a song that goes like this. Every day, same old way. Every day, same old way. Every day, same old way. Which turns into a factory, an assembly line, whereby we build nuclear cooling towers out of Colonel Sanders' chicken buckets that we put on top of each other, and then bat them into the audience, harvest them from the audience, and keep going. The songs, it's not like they had beginnings, middles, and ends. They just, we did them as long as they took to, hey baby, you wanna do it or what? You wanna ride? Hey baby. This is a piece called Nancy Wilson, who's a jazz singer who sang a song about seeing her partner out with somebody else. We all do something Friday night. I have my private life. This is Get Rebel, written by Diane Torr and Ingrid C. Shee. We've got a disease the clinic can fix. We caught it last week from a radiation leak. Get rebel! So the rest of us are whapping these flags around while Ingrid is singing the song. This one, I think, is ironic because we're still fighting with Iran today, and it's how many years later? 50 years later. It's a piece called Irony, for which Donna is sitting on a chair. She's got hotel bells strapped to her boobs. So she's playing her boobs. And I've got a bed sheet. She's got a slit in her bed sheet. I have a bed sheet, which I'm turning into a babushka, a hijab, a shawl, an apron, and a menstrual pad over and over. And it had no words, it had gestures, and we went on as long as we felt it needed to go on. This is supposed to be a song called Every Girl, but actually in this slide we're just drinking beer. So at the end of disband was active from 1978 to 1982. Ronald Reagan had been elected in 1980. And I did one, we were all, disband members were the members of Ronald Reagan's cabinet. So Ilona was James Watts a tree. His name was James Watt, but we called him James Watts a tree. And I was Alexander M. Plague Jr. instead of Alexander M. Haig Jr. So I did a performance after disband as Alexander. I tried doing a performance as Ron. That was not very successful. But then I found Nancy. It's so important to be too thin. If I could do it all over again, I'd be ambitious to be a success, be the first lady, and be so well dressed. Oh, we don't have to read the papers. He's the Sun-Prez, and we are the news. We don't get the blues. Da-da-da-da. Okay, so then George H.W. Bush was elected. I did a performance as Barbara, kind of reluctantly. Then Bill Clinton was elected, and the MTV program had started, and there was an MTV inaugural ball for Bill. It's a sea of youth in this vast room, and he comes out on a causeway into the sea of youth playing the saxophone. Our president is playing the saxophone. Well, the youth of America was overjoyed, Our president is playing the saxophone. So then Hillary follows him out on the causeway, and then Al comes out on the causeway, and then Tipper comes out, and the mood in the room shifts. They booed her off the stage. Why did they boo Tipper Gore off the stage of the MTV inaugural ball? Yes, it's still there. If you buy a record or a CD, it's like a yellow tab with red text that says, "This record contains dirty language and you should not buy it for your children." And the youth of America, there had been a lawsuit, I think, with Frank Zappa about 10 years before this moment. The youth of America had not forgotten. So I decided to be Tipper Gore during the Clinton years. Okay, now George W. Bush has been elected. Good evening. I'm Barbara Bush, ex-First Lady of the United States, wife and confidant of George Herbert Walker Bush, 41st President of the United States, mother and confidant of Jeb Bush, ex-governor of the great state of Florida, mother and confidant of George W. Bush, 43rd President of the United States. If power is the ultimate aphrodisiac, I guess you might say I'm the sexiest woman in the free world. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm all washed up. All right, now we're going to see another video. This one is, let's see. Actually, it's related to this one, but I'm going to tell you the story after we see the video. Is it not going to work? That's all right. Life will go on.
Just go back.
It's not cooperating.
It's not cooperating.
All right.
Okay.
So I'll just tell you the story. That this video we're not seeing, Deformation, I made in 1974. The last, I use black and white grease pencil to deform my face. And the last image of the video made in 1974 looks a lot like I actually look in 2009. So I called my show at PPOW, I Have Become My Own Worst Fear. And I'm an old lady now, so I'm doing work about having fun being an old lady. This is a piece called Growing Old. I took a photograph every month as my hair grew out gray. I was a redhead because I had gone to Europe with my friends, 19 ages ago, 79, 78, I think, 78. And we all handed our hair, the boys, the girls, everybody. It was dripping down our necks, and we didn't know how to do it, but we had a ton of fun. And I was born a blonde, but blondes are considered to be stupid. So I decided to become a redhead, because redheads are perhaps alcoholic or flamboyant, but at least they're not considered to be stupid. So I let my hair grow out completely gray. Why did I do that? Because I wanted to do this piece. It's a piece called Name Equals Fate, in which I'm trying to look like Bill Clinton. His name is William Jefferson Clinton, and my name is Martha Story Wilson. But I was walking down Fifth Avenue in Brooklyn with gray hair. I'm a gray-haired lady. And somebody bumped into me on the street, like I was invisible. And then it happened again, like, I don't know, the next day. So I did this piece called Invisible, about how gray-haired ladies of a certain age they disappear in this society. They're not regarded as beings. Beauty is in the eye. You'll see that my work still is a combination of text and image. It's important to me to have the concept stated in the work. This is a piece called Before and After, where I took this picture of my torso in 1973 thinking that I was fat. Bowled over. This is my grandfather's bowler that he actually wore. Thin-skinned. So I hired a makeup artist to help me with my work, and she said, well, if you really want to have wrinkles, you should paint your face with latex, which is how they do it in Hollywood. That's how, an actress who's only 25 can look like she's 50 years old. So here I am taking my thin skin off. The legs are the last to go is what Yoko Ono told me at an opening. She was wearing hot pants with stockings that had sequins sewed into them. Oh, she looked great. She's turned 85, I think she just turned 85. She was turning 75 at the time. This is Mona Martha Marge. I thought it was about the layers of recognition. When you look at a work of art, there's the first thing you see, and then maybe the second thing you see, and maybe the third thing you see. The layers of recognition and understanding when you're looking at a work of art. But my friend Britta Wheeler, sociologist, performance artist, said, no, it's a portrait of postmodernism. Because the Mona Lisa is the highest of high art, Marge Simpson is the lowest of low art, and Martha's in the middle. So then, the same piece was turned into a lenticular photograph so that Marcel Duchamp's mustache and goatee would appear and disappear as you walk past it. He famously drew a mustache and a goatee on the Mona Lisa. It was a postcard image of the Mona Lisa. New Wrinkles on the subject. I hired a makeup artist to inscribe my wrinkles. This is me, self-portrait with felt hat. The same makeup artist used actual makeup to paint the hat and the background and the suit and my face. This is me giving myself a facelift by hanging upside down. This has a backstory also. Bear in mind, bear in hind. I'm dressed as a panda. I was invited to be part of the Art F City calendar, for which we had to be naked and we had to wear panda ears. But nobody hired a makeup artist to turn themselves into a panda, and I did. And that's the background of this piece. I'm going to die. This has a story. So it's 1977. I founded Franklin Furnace. I'm taking a shower in the tub, and I slip in the shower, and I don't die. But I call my friend Lynn Tillman on the phone and say, Lynn, you have to meet me at Magoo's. I have something to tell you. So Lynn meets me at Magoo's, and I buy her a drink, and then I say, Lynn, I'm going to die. She says, Martha, we're all going to die. And then for my birthday, she gave me a black T-shirt with black letters on it that say, I'm going to die. And I wore it to death. So, you know, Nancy Reagan and Tipper Gore, Trump was elected. My friend Kathy Grove helped me do this piece. She took a picture of me outside the surrogate court building on 26th Street in Manhattan. The statue behind me actually does say force, but then there's small print on the side that says force should only be used in, you know, dire and rare circumstances. We photoshopped that out. She used Trump's actual hair and the outline of his face, but then she plumped my eyes and nose and mouth into the middle of it for this piece called Thump. Beauty Pass. Nancy Burson. Let's see. Nancy Burson is a wonderful artist who developed software that I'll talk about in a minute. For this piece, she's fixing me up as you can now do digitally. There's a process in showbiz called a beauty pass, whereby if you're an actor and you have a mole and you don't want the mole in your image, some poor schlub has to go through every freaking frame of video and remove the mole. So this is my beauty pass. This is actually me on the left, and this is me after the beauty pass on the right. Child Inside. It's a picture of me in 1957. I was only 6.5, so it was even earlier than that, superimposed on an image of me from 2017. Because we all remember, we're all children inside. We still have it in there, however old we may become. Now I'm going to show you this piece as a video. It's called Makeover Melania. Okay. Whoops. Oh, damn. Now this one we know works, so let's go back. what do I do, the space bar?
Should be able to. It was working earlier.
Oh, there it is. That
It's
little
moving?
thing came up.
There we go.
Did you do it?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Nancy Burson developed this software after Eitan Potts disappeared. He was a 6-year-old, and she developed software that would age him so we could look on the milk carton and see what he would look like at age 7 and age 8. And then she developed it further so that we could turn ourselves into Elvis or Andy Warhol. And recently, I think it was 2019, she did a cover for Time magazine that was Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin merged together. I don't know how to use Photoshop, but I hire people who do. This is a triptych piece. So I'm an old lady and I'm having fun being old. This is more wrinkles on the subject. Thanks to John Koblenz. I don't know if you know who John Koblenz is, but he took photographs of his feet. Truly ugly. Okay, now. Come on. I need your help again. I don't know how she does that. Hi, I'm Martha Wilson, speaking to you in 2021. With this tape, I'm recreating a work I made in 1973 while I was living in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, while teaching English grammar at the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design. Because I was on the faculty, I could audit classes and use school equipment. In one of these classes, I heard about Bruce Naumann's 1969 Bouncing Balls video piece in which he bounces his testicles. So I decided to do a female version on 8mm film. This 1973 film is now lost, and I am now 73 years old, which makes this piece perhaps less alluring, but so it goes. The end. Thank you. I'm going to ask if anybody has questions, and we have a live mic, so you can ask your questions.
Do you feel very vulnerable or shy about showing your body in your art pieces?
Showing my fat ass? Sure. Sure I do. But we live in our female bodies, and we have not got much choice about our instrument. It's what we have. So I use what I have.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Martha. This was great to see. I'm thinking a lot about how something like using your own body in your artwork now versus what it felt like in earlier days, and how we think about sort of like social media and the impact on the way that we see ourselves in advertising. And I think it's really interesting that you bring up the concept of like the beauty pass, which is something that is so, I think, unknown to like the average viewer of, for example, like red carpet photos, right? Like the way that all of these images are super doctored and hyper doctored before they ever reach the public. And there's kind of just like this agreement among photographers and the retouchers that they just like never talk about it. And I think that what your work does is really kind of like highlight that stuff that we never talk about, these sort of like this sort of sense of retouching, or like what does it really look like. And then I think it's been really, it was interesting to see these like newer works that I hadn't seen before as you're sort of like continuing to like explore what it means to be within your body as a woman who is aged. Do you think that there is a difference in the way that female artists or women who are, or artists who are very specifically thinking about their like womanhood is changing in like the contemporary dialogue? Like, do you see as many, like looking at young people who are artists thinking about, for example, I see personally like way more artists trying to talk about how like even if their body is a female form, like that actually doesn't have any impact on the work. Like they're just a human in space rather than like a woman in space. What's your perspective on like how women as artists are thinking about that now and how that has changed in the last 50 years?
I'm not sure that women as artists are changing the society as much as advertising is changing the society. I've seen fat ladies wearing brasiers in advertising, which I thought was a miracle. I mean, it's great. And black women who weigh something wearing clothes. I think that, you know, we're going to try to change the culture in every possible way that we can, and advertising is taking steps in that direction to change the perception that we have of the value of a woman's body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somebody
other
mentioned
questions?
Cindy Sherman.
Awesome.
It's not really a question, but I couldn't help but notice the way in which your work is like ahead of Cindy Sherman, which has now gotten to be huge. And that's an observation. There's really not much you can do about it. It's history. But
So I'm in a show at the Pompidou in France, so I went to France. And while I was there, I went to the inaugural show of the Pinault collection in the Bourse de Commerce, which shows Martha Wilson on this wall, the first wall you see when you go in, and then Cindy Sherman is down the wall a ways, because I was working in 74 and she's working in 76. Cindy, however, we're compared often.
yeah,
Cindy never uses language. Every one of her images is untitled. She never uses language. I always use language. I think we're on different trajectories. We're on different paths of exploration. And because the images might look similar, people conflate us.
yeah. It's kind of obvious. I saw the Barbara Bush performance at the Detroit Institute of Arts. I thought it was fun.
Oh,
just
thank you.
Don't walk away from it totally. It was fun.
I still have the wig. And the pearls.
Hi. Thanks for your presentation. It was great. I want to just hear a little bit about how you feel about aging and really being perceived as an older woman. Like, I think the visibility of older women in society is almost non-existent. So I find it really awesome that you're so boldly like inserting yourself in a visible way. So I just like to hear you talk a little bit more about like what that decision has been.
Thank
for
you. Thank you for that question. So I did a piece after Bill Clinton, after Invisible, I did a piece about Cruella de Vil. Cruella, instead of having black and white hair, in my piece has red and white hair. And Cruella is, mad and happy. It's a diptych. And then the photographer said, "Are you going to keep it that way?" I thought, yeah, I'm going to keep it that way. So I've had half hair. I've had Cruella hair for 13 years at this point, and I no longer get bumped into on the street. And sometimes kids call out they're driving by in a car and they say, "Oh, hi, Cruella," which makes me really happy. I think as an old lady, you have to accommodate the fact that you become invisible and figure out how you're going to deal with it. Are
Any
we
other
done?
questions?
I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about the Franklin Furnace Archive, which
Oh,
is,
sure.
an incredible project, and I happen to have work in it, so so that's maybe self-serving. But I think it's a really interesting project, and the way it's actually kind of legitimized a certain practice, and the fact that the MoMA acquired the archive.
Yeah.
Although they say it's in the library, so they're still keeping it at one remove. But I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about the motivation, the experiences, the way in which that created connections among a broader art community, which I think is really one of the interesting parts about it.
Thank you for this question, too. So there was no feminist community in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And when my boyfriend dumped my ass, I decided to move to New York to find out if I really was an artist or not, and met all these crazy women and all these other crazy people who were doing art below 14th Street. Laurie Anderson has famously said, the same 300 people went to everything. And it's true, we made Franklin Furnace, we put our performances up on Tuesday and Thursday so that we, artists, could all visit the kitchen and the clock tower on Friday and Saturday. Artists were making stuff, cheap stuff for regular people to consume. They were making artist books, they were putting posters up on the street, they were doing street actions, audio, there was a lot of audio, some film, except that was expensive. They were doing time-based work, temporary installations, and the uptown community was not paying attention to what the downtown community was doing. The Museum of Modern Art finally did do a projects room so they could do temporary installation and things that artists were actually doing. I was making artist books and doing performances, and I had 30 friends who were making artist books, and so I decided to open a bookstore for artist books in my living loft, which was in a storefront on Franklin Street in Tribeca. On the top floor of this building was Willoughby Sharp, the publisher of Avalanche magazine. He was starting he wanted to call it the Franklin Street Arts Center, and I was collecting artist books, and Printed Matter was being formed at exactly the same time. Lucy Lepard was on the board, Saul DeWitt. There were 12, I think, Edith Diak, Walter Robinson, Robin Winters. Anyway, it took them a little bit longer to get off the block because there were 12 of them and they had to decide what they were doing. But we had a meeting and they wanted to publish artist books and distribute artist books. By this point, I had been standing in line at the post office for 3 months, and I thought, no, I don't want to distribute artist books. I want to collect and preserve artist books. So we had a discussion about sharing space. We were going to share my storefront. Willoughby Sharp came down the elevator with his attorney and said, "This will never be known as the Printed Matter building," which frightened Printed Matter off. And they went over to Hudson Street, and then they went to Lispenard Street. But it became a crucial moment when an artist, Martine Abalea, whom I just saw in Paris, wanted to read from her artist book. This is about 3 months in. So Franklin Furnace opened in April, May, June. In June, she wanted to read from her artist book, and she showed up in a costume. So the performance art program was born immediately, and the temporary installation program was born immediately because we were exhibiting artist books, but the artist books would go up the wall, across the ceiling. So the way we held it together conceptually was to decide it was time-based work as opposed to static painting and sculpture. This is time-based work. And it was for a regular, an audience of regular people, not collectors and not museum curators, and for regular folks who could afford a $5 work of art. And that has really never changed. The mission of the organization remains the same. We collected the artists' book collection, the biggest one in the United States. Then the board looked at how the loft was made of wood and the books were made of paper and thought, this is not a good long-range preservation plan for the books. So we made a deal with MoMA. They bought. But I had asked the artist for 3 copies. I don't know if you remember this, but I asked you to donate 3 copies to Franklin Furnace. So MoMA kept the first copies, sold the second copies to fund the deal, and then returned the third copies to us. So we're now at Pratt. We're an organization in residence at Pratt Institute, and we feel fine about letting people handle the artist book collection because MoMA has the pristine stuff uptown. And if somebody spilled coffee, that would never happen with Michael Katrin in charge. But, if somebody were to dog-ear a page or something, it wouldn't be the end of the world.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Martha.
Thank you, everybody.